going to specifically get us in the right frame of mind so we can cooperate together and move on forward together. So, Leo?
Mahalo Keakua. Thank you, God, for your presence here today, your presence that's within all of us. The chant that I just did, the first line was asking to listen to the voice of your heart. That spark that connects all of us as one. The second verse was asking to listen to the voice of our kupuna and our ancestors. And the third was listening to the voice of our land. With that in mind, may this meeting go well, that our ears and our hearts are opened, and whatever blockages are there, or anything that may block the flow of things that is of divine nature, may it go back to source and not return. And we call in love, compassion, and aloha for everyone. Mahalo Keakua.
Thank you, Leo. Pretty nice to start off like that. There's been some recent events. The purpose of this meeting is on March 13th, we had a little incident at PGV. There's all kinds of misinformation and he said, they said. So this meeting was put together so that we can find out specifically from the plant and from our civil defense. Oliver from civil defense is here too. So before we get to them, we wanted to talk about some little side issues with HB 106. I'm sure you've all been following that bill. Like Leo was saying, and not so much direct term, there's a lot of controversial talk, so please keep your level of respect for everybody else real high. And turn your cell phones off or on silent. And at the back we have two forms. We developed a forum, Puna Pono Alliance. When I say we, Puna Pono Alliance wanted to get from the community exactly where were you when it happened, did you smell anything and everything. So we kind of put that form. Well, hot off the press, we got the Department of Health, the Clean Air Grant sent us a form. So They're kind of redundant, but if you don't mind filling in both of them so we don't lose anything, but there's places for comments right here. Okay? And I'm told to remind you about that because we want those warnings. So this is all good information, historical information that can help us move farther ahead. We have a few speakers tonight, distinguished speakers. We have our Senator Russell Ruderman, we have Harry Kim. Bob Patrici is going to tell you a little bit about where we come as Puna Pono Alliance. We meet weekly, and we want to really get the information out to you. Mike Kaleikini is gracious to present PGD's response plan, as well as Dara Olivera. And then we're going to end up the night with Tom Luebben, who handles some of the cases. He handles cases on the continental United States for Native Americans, land issue, water issues, and stuff. So he's got a lot of expertise that he can kind of tell us what are steps ahead. And then we're going to bring back Daryl, Civil Defense, and Mike Kaleikini. And then I got a couple remote mics here. We're going to have you come up on one side or in the middle here, and then we'll alternate for questions and answers for our distinguished panel. And I think that would be a real good format for tonight. Last meeting that we had, Russell Ruderman was in the audience, and I was waiting for him, and when I found a spot to announce him, I said, and Russell Ruderman, and he already left, so this meeting I wanted to start with Russell. He's a senator from Puna, or District 2, but Puna is a better word. And talk about a legislature that hit the ground running. Russell has been busy writing bills. And so he's going to kind of update you on the legislative process, what happened to HB 106. Russell Ruderman.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to be brief because I know we got a lot of specific and urgent things to talk about. But I think it's my role to just kind of summarize a little bit about what happened with a couple of geothermal bills, geothermal-related bills in the legislature in the last week. Some of you may have read about it today in the paper, and it's a kind of confusing situation. We had a couple of bills relating to geothermal planning that both kind of came to a head this week. And one was HB 106, which was a companion measure to a bill that I introduced in the Senate. And that was essentially started off as repeal Act 97, which would have restored the subzones and would have restored county oversight of the planning process. That evolved into the current incarnation of HB 106, which only had the county planning restored. So it was about half of the bill it started off to be, but we were still very much in favor of it. By we, I mean people like Bob Patrici, Hirakami, Puna Pono Alliance, which includes so many people here who work really hard. And that's where I was taking my cues from, because you guys have been studying it. There was also a competing bill, HB 932, that was a series of things put together, basically aimed at fast-tracking future geothermal development. Well, what happened is it came down to a little power struggle at the end, and myself and an adversary fought each other to a draw, I think. And the good bill that we wanted didn't pass, but the bad bill that we were really dead set against also didn't pass. So it's an unfortunate situation. The majority of the people there actually wanted this bill, but we couldn't get past the power structure the way it's set up. I think that we will be able to do more of it next year. And so as of right now, Act 97 is still in place, and nothing has changed with regards to that. My other bills related to the geothermal issue died long ago. One of them is being resurrected and is a resolution that's going to come up this month, and that has to do with an expression that we don't want fracking used in Hawaii. And I think many of us feel that way, and the reason it's relevant to geothermal is there's a lot of enhanced geothermal systems being proposed, perhaps for our next steps, that includes fracking. Fracking includes a whole other level of damage to our environment in addition to anything else. So that's where the legislation stands now. Both those bills remain dormant to be picked up again in the next legislative session. So I'm a freshman legislator. I was able to maneuver so far, and then honestly I was outmaneuvered at the very end. That's what happened. I really thank Harry and Bill Chickasea, who came over there to testify that day, and all the work that Bob, Steve, and all you guys in Puna Pono Alliance have been doing in that regard. I wanted to mention, in terms of the recent event, I was fortunate enough to be in Honolulu that day. And I'm not the expert on what happened. You guys will hear much more about that. But there's a couple of points that are really obvious to me. I'm really thankful that people from PG are here and Civil Defense can hear this. Because I personally know people who smell hydrogen sulfide miles away in different communities that were miles away. And yet all the health monitors seem to register 0. And there's something really deeply, fundamentally wrong with that picture. And I hope we can get people to take it seriously and correct that before the next event. The other thing that's deeply, fundamentally wrong was a complete lack of notification of the neighbors. And you guys know that better than me, but no matter what else we think about geothermal, those two things show something wrong with the system we have today, and it needs to be fixed for basic, basic civil protection so we can be safe in our homes. And the last thing I want to say, and I look forward to talking to Mr. Ignacio at length about this in the future, but regarding future planning of geothermal, the one thing that's clear to me is that for many, many reasons, I really hope that the future of geothermal and our next developments are not in Puna. I really hope that they're in Kona, where the demand is and where the geology is stable and where we can locate it away from residences. And if I keep telling people that if I wanted geothermal to succeed in Hawaii, I would make sure that the second geothermal plant was not controversial like the first one is. And that's not going to happen in Puna because we are all here. Thank you very
much. Well, protocol makes me have to introduce our Puna councilman back there, Gregory Hirakami. Gregory, nice to see you here. Thanks for I really like the quote. I can't quote it exactly, but it was something to the tune of it's better to be extra cautious than not enough. So thank you for that, and I'm sure you'll be remembered for that. It's so nice to see so many different faces, some new faces. Boy, this movement is growing, and it's really about people informing people, and I'm really glad to see some new faces. I saw some of you today at the blessing of Raj's solar farm out there on Pohoiki Road, and it's a wonderful thing. I think that it's not impossible. I'm always interested in math, so I asked Raj to divide 38 megawatts by 75 kilowatts, which is what the plant, his plant produces, and it's 504 replications of that would equal 38 megawatts. But the whole thing is they don't have to be all placed in the same area. They can be spread out over an entire area. So there's things happening, and today was a big step. The governor was there. Governor Abercrombie came out there. His security guys was kind of, wow. Oh, last time we gonna come Puna, Governor, because it's kind of scary. So the snipers over on us. Next, I'm really proud to bring up a civil defense administrator for over 25 years, your mayor, county mayor for 8 years, a guy who's putting out his personal time and money to get things done right. And I'd like to bring up Honorable Harry Kim.
follow up with what Steve said. There are so many people in Puna that are working so hard, to do what is right, and you should know how hard they're working, and not only the time, but the amount of money they're spending in regards to this paperwork or learning Honolulu or whatever they're doing for the community. You know who they are, and I'm sure you do. Give it time to say thank you to them. Because I guarantee you, if it weren't for them, this thing would just go away quietly. I don't know what to tell you except I'm sorry for what happened. I was sure 106 was going to go. At the beginning, 97, Act 97, to ask for repeal, I was told it was going to be an impossible task. Act 55 was going to be easier because there was such a statewide issue. But 97, as I told people, was so very wrong. Of people, land, of air, and the water. When I read it, I could not believe the arrogance of people to pass that. And I feel even stronger today. I told my wife coming over here, the hardest thing about all of this is all the things that you write, and you spend so much time to make sure the information is correct, so no one can dispute your information. And you're looking at things that are absolutely right by law, using the words that they put into the act. And this is what it said. In 1983, the people who wanted geothermal here, and that's how old I was because I was in civil defense since 1976. There were good people who believed in geothermal, and I would say 99.9% of the people in Hawaii, including obviously yours truly, knew nothing about geothermal. And they wanted to do it right. I really believe that. So they enacted a law called Act 296. And yes, some of it was not followed to the letter. But let's just focus on the intent of Act that Act 97 took away. And it said to develop geothermal in an area of consideration of people, of land, entire environment, the community, of livestock, the works. It said to identify geothermal development in certain areas only. It said to develop a permitting process that would give the community that was affected the most an opportunity for meaningful input. All of that was taken away. It said that U.S. citizens would have the right in regards to contested case hearing. Never before in the history of the state of Hawaii has that right been taken away. And they put that in, you had that right. And also stated in regards to where you could do exploratory drilling for geothermal. Yes, I had concerns at the time, but when you looked at it, it was good. It covered the very basic things, especially of consideration of lifestyle, of you as people, and a very, very precious environment. And come Act 97, and what was in Act 97? That you could build an industrial plant like geothermal anywhere in the state of Hawaii. What else did it have in Act 97? It took away your contested case right in regards to the citizen. What else did it take away? Of limiting where you could exploratory drill, and so the whole state basically is open to you. When you read that of Act 97, the initial response is, this cannot be. You're taking away all of the commitment and promises that you made to the people of this land, especially people in Puna, and quietly passed this so fast that nobody even knew what the hell I was talking about when I said I'm ready to repeal 97. And And I'm very sorry that we were not successful. I make no bones about it. I left that legislature very saddened and was asked by a reporter what I thought about it. And I said, this is one of the saddest days of my life in regards to government, the role of government, and the responsibilities to you, the people, to the very precious land that counts on us as stewards to make it better. When the senator asked me before the hearing on positions, what position to take, I said, never ever pay attention to who is for or who is against anything. You make your decision based on only one thing, and that is what is right by law and what is the sense of right. And let that guide. So if the powers that be opposed to you, so be it. But you will always feel good if you do what is right by law and a sense of what is right. I'm sorry we were not successful, but I guarantee you we will be there next year. Thank you.
Once again, Hirakami. And, you know, I'm going to disagree with you, Harry. We are successful. I mean, look at this growing support. Look at what your works have done and stimulated this kind of interest. And, you know, our hearts are out to you, Harry. Thank you very much. And, you know, I was watching a special on TV last night, and they kept on repeating the word clean energy. I think we made a mistake when we first wanted green energy, because when they saw green, they saw the money. So from now on, we're going to call it clean, not green, okay? Because I used to like the word green. Oh yeah, green energy. So let's go for clean energy. I want to bring up Bob Patrici. He's kind of like the seed for this thing, for this movement and everything. He's been into it. He's kind of weary, but we keep on propping him up and saying, go Bob, go Bob. So anyway, he's going to tell you a little bit about the organization. Our basic need is cash. You know, we could do so much more. And that's being real honest with you. Because this is really grassroots. We're pulling out $10 at the meetings and stuff just to print out brochures and paint banners. We're getting a lot of in-kind service. So anyway, here's Bob Patrici.
Hello. Thank you all for coming and for all the support we've gotten. And thank you, Steve. Harry Kim, Russell Ruderman. Russell's done a really amazing job over there with legislation, and not just on 106. And I can tell you, it's a tough row because he's bucking the system. And I was there, and I can tell you that is a rough game in Honolulu. So we've come a long way, and we're finishing up at the legislature now. We didn't get the bill that we wanted. But what we did do was we took geothermal out of the closet. And, geothermal is not in the back room anymore. Everybody over there knows about it, and they all know about enhanced geothermal systems, which is fracking. And a lot of people deny, no, we don't want to frack. Don't believe that for a minute. They've drilled lots of exploratory wells around Puna, and they've only ever found one commercial resource, which is the one that PGV uses now. All of the other wells haven't been commercially viable for conventional geothermal. What they have found is hot rock, and that's why they want to get rid of geothermal subzones, so they can go wherever they want to do this new enhanced geothermal. There's a lot of information on it. I won't go into it too much. That's going to be coming legislation that we'll be working on. But remember, they can't even operate this one power plant safely. They haven't worked out the regulation. They haven't worked out the bugs for the one power plant that they have yet. They've introduced legislation to streamline the process, to remove county from land zoning and permitting. streamline the environmental process so we don't get environmental review. Don't you think they should fix the one and get the one that they have operating correctly before we start talking about, we got to build a whole bunch of these things. This PGV power plant, between 1991 and 1999, there were 19 declared civil defense emergencies at that power plant. And then since then, 1999, really hard to get information. But Tom Travis from Puna Pono Alliance recently was able to get a list of releases. And this is a list of releases since 1999 at this power plant. And there's lots and lots of them. I'll name a couple of them. One was 2004 pentane fire and explosion that burned a generator, 3,000 gallons of pentane. 2006, a flow test accident released 1 hour average of 789 parts per billion hydrogen sulfide. 2011, what was that one? I think it was the lightning strike, and they had a release. And these are just, the ones, we haven't reviewed this list yet. We just got it. Last year they had an injection well casing failure. Then they just had this accident last Wednesday. So I think what we can say is that this power plant has had more releases and accidents than any other power plant in the history of the state of Hawaii. And so, what we really need is regulation. We need oversight. We need to take care of the problems with the existing power plant. And people in Honolulu aren't aware of that because the regulatory agencies haven't done a very good job of bringing to light when these type of things happen. And so, there's a lot of people in the legislature in Honolulu that we're just now beginning to educate. And so it's really up to us here because we're the ones that know about these things. We're the ones that have dealt with them. And it's our job to educate the people in Honolulu to the problems with the existing power plant before we move forward trying to build a bunch of these power plants with even less regulation than what we have right now. So with that, I will turn the microphone back over to Steve. Thank you all again. Please stick with us.
Thank you, Bob. He's a combination of crusader, rabbit, and ever-ready bucket. So keeping on going at this. We moved away from green to clean. One word that I think will have to go away someday in our vocabulary is fracking. No, get over to that fracking. Is that fracking dumb or what? So speaking about quotes, when you look up in the dictionary of popular quotes, when you look up the phrase, "Don't shoot the messenger," when you come to that one, Michael Kaleikini's picture is right on there. So I'm going to bring him up right now. Michael Kaleikini is a plant manager for PGV, and he's gonna do in part about what PGV does to monitor, to make it safe for all of the residents here. And then I kind of wanted to keep it separate, and then we're gonna have. I had that joke. Was my joke? Or no? No. And then we're gonna have the county civil defense come up separately and give a presentation. And then we're gonna put them together and hopefully have a real dialogue between you and them. Okay, Mike Kaleikini.
Thank you, Steve. You should consider running for mayor. Anyway, so I just wanted to clarify a couple things. First of all, I wanted to say thank you and mahalo to everyone for coming out to this community meeting. And I wanted to say thanks to Bob and Tom and others who have invited us. This is this fantastic forum for us to share the opportunity of the knowledge and what we experience from our perspective, and hopefully to get better understanding with folks out in the community. And so before I go into a couple of housekeeping things, I'm not the plant manager anymore. Our plant manager is sitting right there, Thompson. But I'm still the person that you can call if you have a complaint.
Perhaps he could stand so we could all get a good look at him.
Would you stand, please, Cliff? So, just quick clips from our Reno plant on Ormat. Cliff was a manager at a place in Reno, Nevada, where we have over 100 megawatts of geothermal power, where we're situated right next to shopping malls and elementary schools. So if anyone's interested about learning more about that, please feel free to talk to Cliff when there's a break or what have you. Okay, and I wanted to say a couple of things in regards to Senator Ruderman and Hirakami on HB 106. So PGB and ORMAT, we supported 106, and we wanted the home rule back in the county's jurisdiction. Just FYI, so you guys know where we're at on that. And next, I wanted to comment on what Bob was sharing on the list of releases. So that list was provided to Tom by me. That information is information that we are required by law to submit to the Department of Health. So I know that some folks had difficulty getting information from certain agencies, and if you wanted all of the information, it would have cost an enormous sum of money. It takes a little bit of time, and I'm gonna submit a more complete list, because I am involved on the side in this health assessment working group, with several community members are involved, and Bob's one of them, Renee, Lisa, Al, Weiler, some folks from Leilani, and a pharmacist from Hilo. So we definitely going to share all of our compliance, all of our information. My perspective, we have nothing to hide. We'll share it. DOH should be able to provide that information. Anyone should be able to have access to the same list that Bob's getting. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. So, what happened on March 13, 2013, besides electing a new pope? So we were at full capacity. The plant was running. We were doing 38 megawatts. That's what our design, that's what our contract is with HELCO. And before I get into the details, let me kind of backtrack about the process itself. So we are a geothermal power plant. We are clean and we are green, my perspective. So what we do is we have geothermal wells that are into the geothermal resource that harnesses steam and hot water. We refer to the hot water as brine. So if you can imagine about 3,000 gallons per minute of geothermal fluids that are flowing. 2,000 gallons per minute is the brine, and roughly converted 1,000 gallons per minute would be attributed to steam. So the steam and the brine comes up. We use the heat from the steam to generate up to 30 megawatts on the original plant. We use the heat from the brine to generate up to 8 megawatts from the expansion plant we recently completed. Okay, so if you can picture that, 3,000 gallons a minute, 1,000 gallons per minute of steam that's flowing, quite a bit, but that's what's needed to generate the 38 megawatts. Next thing, all of a sudden, we're disconnected from the grid. And there was some fault that occurred that disconnected us from the transmission system. Like every other system at PGB, there is a great deal of redundancy for safety reasons. In this case, on the transmission side, we have 2 lines. And the design criteria behind having the 2 lines is that if you have a problem or if you need to do maintenance on 1 line, you can still continue generating with the remaining line. In this instance, we got disconnected from both lines. So now, getting back, 3,000 gallons a minute is flowing and there's nowhere to go. Okay? The design of the plant on the steam side is to protect the system from overpressure conditions. We're typically running at about 200 psi when the plant is in normal operation. So now you disconnect, you got 200 psi, 1,000 gallons per minute of steam, nowhere to go, it's just going to build up. So what is engineered into the system for overpressure safety response is the system we refer to as the emergency steam release facility. So what happens then? We reach a high pressure, we're not generating power out to the grid anymore. We are now keeping the pressure down by going to atmosphere. That's what folks saw. Whoever saw that, you saw the steam plume from our steam release facility. In addition, because the steam contains hydrogen sulfide, we are required to inject caustic soda, sodium hydroxide, and water. The mixture of sodium hydroxide and water mixed with the H2S, and the result you get SO2, sulfur dioxide, in a lower concentration. So that's what occurred. It was an immediate response, all computer generated. As soon as the pressure went up, the computer saw that, said, oops, we have a high pressure situation, we need to relieve pressure, and that's what happened. Open up the atmosphere. And at the same time, in responses like this, the key is to eliminate the production. What had happened is automatically the control started shutting in the production wells. So this is all happening like in succession. You lose generation, pressure immediately rises, the system senses it, sees it, opens up to protect the plant, to protect the piping, so that we don't get no ruptures. If you're going to the ESRF, it's being abated. If you get a rupture somewhere else, it will be unabated. It will be a worse condition. So it took us 15 minutes to reduce the pressure, to shut in all the wells, to send our personnel out, to close additional wells, just as a backup for anything that might be leaking line. Okay, so in a nutshell, in my observation, I've been there several years, that was one of the best responses that our plant personnel responded to in a situation like that. I don't recall any time for many, many years where we've been at full power and losing both transmission lines. We've gone through the ESRF for very short periods of time, but not at full 38 megawatts. This was maximum flow rate, which the system is designed to handle. So our guys responded. As soon as we tripped offline, it's very easy to notice because the lights go off. So I immediately went over to the control room, and I know Cliff and others were there, and started making notifications. So by compliance, we're required to notify Civil Defense, Department of Health, Air Branch, Department of Land and Natural Resource, Planning Department, and several others. In that time frame, besides those agencies, I did call, I received a call from Bob, so Bob was proactive on that. And I wanted to mention about, even what Senator mentioned about monitoring and H2S and, the system not indicating any readings. I know that one of our guys, Ron, was out there when he took readings at that particular time, at that location, it was 0. But as we went throughout the rest of the area, we got as high as 25 parts per billion. The monitoring station actually picked up a peak reading of 19 parts per billion and a 5-minute average of 16.7 parts per billion. Okay, that's what H2S. So, and we got calls from Kahana. I got many calls from the different parts of the area through our response line, our information line. And we basically did our investigation, which is normal, make sure that we're trying to figure out, why did we trip? What else do we need to do to restore? We checked things out, took us several hours. HELCO was checking on their side too. Took them a little bit of time, just like us, in the same duration that we were doing our checks. Came back, had it all clear, and we started up the plant again. I believe we got back to You know, we got our first units back online in a couple hours. We're back to full power like midnight or shortly after. And that is what happened on March 13th at PGG. Thank you.
Well, with that presentation, I'm sure there will be lots of questions coming from you when they come back up here. Okay. I love being a moderator because I get to make some side quotes too. But Mike said, "We are clean, we are green." Well, why don't you spend some of that green to make sure that you're clean? Because you know what? In my estimation, there should be, for every 360 degrees there is in the compass, there should be every 10 degrees, there should be a monitor there with real-time data. And that data should be fed directly into civil defense. Can we work that out there on data? And you know, we got real-time data coming from top of Mauna Kea down to here. We got snow conditions. We got the astrologers. Some of them sit up there in the stars and they feed right down to the UH right there. We should be able to have that kind of feeds available for all of our citizens on your computer. You just dial in, boom. And the real-time monitors will tell you what's the readings, what's the wind speed, what's the wind direction, and things like are pertinent to people that are living. Because the last time I checked, you notified civil defense, the planning department, all those guys, they don't live right by the plant, you know? So I think that what I wanted to hear is what are we going to do to alert the people? Because you know, agency respond, oh, well, they're on the blog, I live in Kilo, by the time I get over there, they're going to finish up. So I think this is where I think we want to have some dialogue later, Mike. I'm only half making fun of you. I can get worse. But, so anyway, that's the kind of thing. It's fine, not moderating.
No abuse, no abuse.
Sorry, I have to get to here. Next we have Dara Oliveira. I think it's a long time with the fire department. He's now chief of head of civil defense. Dara, is that correct? All right. So give him a warm welcome.
Thanks. Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to participate this afternoon and address you and address what questions you may have. I want to say thanks to, again, the people that called us at Civil Defense with this event and this incident, kept us informed and shared their information and what they were seeing and experiencing. When we first got the call from the fire department dispatch, we immediately tried to make contact with PGB to confirm the events that were unfolding, as well as we simultaneously dispatched the fire department response units. So we had an engine company from Pohua and a hazmat team coming out from Kilo. We felt it was prudent, based on what we were hearing from the dispatch, is that many citizens were calling in saying what they were seeing as far as the venting of the plume, as well as what they were smelling in the area. So we wanted to get the emergency response teams out here as quickly as possible to assist in the monitoring outside of the facility and see what was happening in the community. So the units did respond as according to their protocols and began to monitor in the field, and were basically picking up very minute levels or lower levels of hydrogen sulfide. And as you saw in the newspaper articles, I did indicate that they had two readings, one of a 1 part per million and one of a 3 part per million, at least on Pohiki Road in the subdivision. Other than that, their readings were showing 0 on the monitors.
Parts per million or parts per billion?
Sorry, parts per million, thank you. Per million, correct. And that's the devices that our hazmat team has.
You know that's 1,000 parts per billion, right?
Correct, yes, sir. The readings that they picked up were very short-lived. I want to say less than a minute from what they were saying. As they would pull up to a site, they would monitor, and for the most part getting 0 readings. But on those 2 specific readings, the presence or the levels remained for less than a minute, and they proceeded to continue monitoring the rest of the subdivision. We did, like I said, get some calls from citizens as far away as Kahana, continuing to report the odor in the area. And for the most part, again, the units were just continuing to monitor until basically we weren't seeing any readings at all. Early on, when the calls were coming in and people were indicating what they were seeing and smelling and talking about self-evacuation, we did open up a shelter here in the Pohua community in the event that people wanted to find a place to basically congregate and we could then feed information to. We thought that having a shelter open would allow for us to send information to a liaison there and keep the community informed. However, nobody showed up at the shelter. Some lessons we learned at Civil Defense. We can get a message out earlier. We can definitely get a radio message out and a communication to the public much sooner, and we'll be making improvements on that. You know, one of the things we did after this incident is we hosted a after-action review with all the agencies, including PGB, Fire, Police, Department of Health, HELCO, and talked about some of the things we could all learn from this and make some changes, improvements. I think some of which you may have seen in the newspaper both yesterday and today. One of the comments or issues we discussed was on the issue of sirens. The state's civil defense siren system is in the process of being renovated and upgraded with new sirens as well as replacement sirens. And one of the things that I saw on the walkthrough was that in the Campbell Industrial Park area, they have a siren system that is part of the tsunami or civil defense system that has a separate tone for the Campbell Industrial Park residents, specifically for our hazardous materials type of an event. In my conversations with state civil defense, with the upgrade or replacement of the sirens here on this island, we will have that capacity in the future and be working with them to improve and use that tool as another means of notifying the community. So again, we are looking into the other ways to improve the notification. Some residents did notify that they received the mass notification, which is an enrollment system. You can sign up with Civil Defense online to receive both text and email and voice messages. We did leave some instructions up front with Councilman Milligan's staff for anybody that hasn't signed up, as again, another tool that we can try to keep you informed and notify you of an event, and if any advisories or actions are needed, we push those out pretty quick. I know there were a lot of questions. I think it was just important for me to let you know that we did receive notification very quickly from PGB. We did work very closely with them throughout the event. There's a lot of coordination with Civil Defense and the different response agencies and making sure the monitoring was taking place and information was coming back. Yes, sir.
I was wondering if the comment of the discrepancy of how the concentration outside the plant went up by a factor of 1,000.
As far as how they come up, I couldn't.
The plant measured 19 parts per billion.
Right.
You measured 1,000.
Yes.
How does the concentration increase?
You know, I really couldn't explain how the concentration would increase in any particular area. Some of the experience we've had and what I've been sharing with the staff, I just came back to the county in January. And as Steve mentioned, I was with Fire prior and retired, about 11 months ago. In the course of working with Fire, one of the events that we were involved with was the monitoring of the sulfur dioxide emissions from Halima. And in the course of doing that incident, over 6 weeks, we were conducting a lot of monitoring in partnership with the National Guard, Department of Health, EPA. And with that type of a gas release, we were seeing sporadic readings of high concentrations. A lot of it was presumed to be weather-related, wind-related, topographical related, where gas was collecting in lower areas. And so some of that we were looking at is, could that be similar to what we were seeing with the hydrogen sulfide in this event? The two readings that came in from the fire department units, they reported were in low depressions in the subdivision where it was below grade, where, again, we're making a lot of presumptions, but may have accumulated in that low spot. But again, we were not able to confirm as far as what may have caused or contributed to that accumulation or higher reading. Yes, ma'am.
Can you get a microphone on these people?
Per million, with an M, million. Perfect, yes. 1 part per million is 1,000 parts per billion.
Can you go over what the health effects of that is?
Sure.
If I were to write down, what would I feel?
Yeah. Well, first of all, at those low levels, depending if you already have some pre-existing health problems, you may be more vulnerable. But obviously, at much lower levels, you can smell the product. You may have throat and eye and irritation. But at those levels, it still hasn't reached a level where the EPA has identified it as an acute exposure threat for a short-term exposure. So as far as other health effects, other than the irritation, and if you are maybe, let's say, more vulnerable because you have respiratory problems, I couldn't tell you, sorry. Yes, sir.
So, wait, why don't you stop this, because we're gonna do this, so, how great you live in Puna, we're so flexible, so, Mike, you wanna come up, and then, I can have somebody, with a monitor, if you guys would all, come up right here, rather than running around chasing you down for the mic. If you have a question, if you can come right up here and take this mic. Mike, you wanna, Paul, you wanna? Question is for Mike. So Mike, you stated that PGB was a supporter of one of the safety plans very grateful for in regards to reinstating permitting process in the county. Is PGB equally supported for reinstatement of contested case hearing as well as the reinstating the geothermal subzone?
We supported reinstating the whole room. That was the only comment we shared.
So what does that mean? You will not support?
We had no position on the other two that you mentioned.
So you're not opposed?
We're not opposed.
You will not oppose reinstating subzone for contested case?
That's correct.
I've got questions for Mike and for Daryl. I'll start with you, Mike. You talked about the steam and the brine. What's in it? What kind of chemical is the brine toxic? What's in it? And when you abate it, what's the chemical analysis of what's going into the community?
Okay, so what's in the steam is what is naturally occurring in the earth. The major concern from Department of Health is the hydrogen sulfide, and thus that's why we abate H2S. So the chemical reaction results in sulfur dioxide and a lot of water. So the plume that you saw was mostly condensate plume, and there may be some caustic soda and water that's entrained in that. We do samples of the geothermal system, and there are other constituents like heavy metals at very low concentrations. But the only one that we are monitoring specifically is hydrogen sulfide.
So you're really not testing it, because we did have an analysis of some of that fallout, basically, because it seemed to concentrate those heavy metals and fall out of the air, and we found lead, cadmium, arsenic, other things that are concerned to the community that we think should be monitored and analyzed, because while you're saying that's how the system's supposed to operate to protect the equipment and protect PGB, it's really at our expense, because what happens is all of that stuff then goes in the community. So we're concerned about that. And, I'm all for protecting your equipment, but I'm more for protecting our families and our community.
Well, but I hope you heard me say that if that did not protect the equipment, then we prevented unabated situation.
I did hear that, and I guess my concern is because this has been a repeating and a recurring thing, and it's not so much PGD. I'm concerned about what's happening with PGD, but what I'm concerned is we're rushing down the road to build more of these power plants when we haven't even got these questions answered. And I really, I don't think that's right. I have a real problem with that. One more thing is, I was there when Ron came up and got the zero reading that you talked about, and I have a difference of opinion because I could smell the hydrogen sulfide. So if you can smell hydrogen sulfide, the lowest you can smell it as, that I believe is 3 parts per billion maybe. It was stronger than usual. It wasn't an if and or about it. We could smell it, but the monitor's reading 0. So I have a concern about that, but now I didn't realize that the fire department had gotten a 1 part per million reading or a 3 part per million reading. Now that, compared to your reading at 19 parts per billion,
Just as an example, if somebody in the community was in one of those low spots and was exposed to 3 parts per million, but you guys are telling DOH and et cetera, that your high is 19 parts per billion, and that makes it difficult for the health studies and the health groups because we don't have a good monitoring system. We have a real problem with the monitoring system. This thing's been going on for 30 years now since HPPA. So I don't think at this point that's acceptable. So, you know, I mean, if you were to ask me what I want to do, and I know you don't want to, I'd say you have to shut that power plant down until you fix these other problems. Okay, I'm really sorry. I really like Mike. I really appreciate that we're able to talk to Mike, and I'm not trying to nail him. I wanted to ask Daryl. You know, Daryl, when I called Civil Defense, I don't know if it was you. I think it may have been you told me the monitors were all reading 0.
Correct, and I think I might have showed you about the 1 and the 3, only because I think I called back and gave you the street location.
Yeah. Well, at the time when I called, and so, you know, we got some questions about what time did you dispatch fire, what time did they take the readings, and, you know, because that's kind of after the fact. Mike said they shut the wells in. The accident was at 3:50, and they shut the wells in within 15 minutes. So obviously the parts, the concentrations were dropping probably, you know, from that point forward. So by the time you took the readings, if they were, I believe, 424 or something, which was quite a while after, it's very possible that we had higher readings than that, that weren't recorded because we didn't have it monitored.
Yeah, as soon as fire units got on scene, they initiated the monitoring, so it'd be from when they first got on scene.
But that was quite a while after the 350. So, and the other thing is, when I called Civil Defense, I wanted to make a report. And I had to talk to several people, and it was very difficult, and I had to actually insist that they take my name to file a report. So we need, as a community, we need a list of people that we can contact if this happens, a 24-hour list, Department of Health, Civil Defense, you know, who can people call? Because basically the alert system right now as it stands is us. I got the call before you probably got the call. I was on scene at 4, maybe 4:05 at the latest. And we're notifying each other, and I'm trying to figure out who to call. And I couldn't, DOH didn't answer the phone. And I called Civil Defense, and I'm told their monitors are reading 0. So, you know, that to me is not an adequate response plan from a community standpoint. I understand from what you guys are doing, you know, you're doing your best and you're trying. We need to work together to fix this because from the community standpoint, it's really not working.
No, thank you.
Oh, excuse me. Well, I believe you're trying to do the best you can where it was coming from. I just wanted to know, because I'm a layman and excuse my ignorance, I just wanted to know how much, you know, you're talking about these levels and monitoring levels. What is the, where is it, what's the reading we're trying to give to us tonight, if you will? Yeah, a little bit of sulfur, a little bit of slip, a lot, how much to us? Yeah.
Okay, so I can respond from the industry perspective because we need to comply with OSHA. So in OSHA terms, an employee can work 8-hour day, work day, up to 10,000 parts per billion without any protection, and that's 10 ppm. The short-term exposure level is 15 parts per million or 15,000 parts per billion, which means that for every hour that you're in an area at that level, you need to get out for 15 minutes. Now, the ceiling exposure limit, which is the level which OSHA says employees need to wear personal protective equipment, like respiratory protection, is 20,000 parts per billion, or 20 parts per million. So that's, from our perspective, that's what we comply with on the employee level. And just as an FYI, the Department of Health Clean Air Branch, the permit, if we exceed 25 parts per billion on an hourly average, it is a violation of our air permit.
My name's John Bryant. I live with my family in one of those low dips right below. I've offered my property for free to place one of those monitors. I live on Hinalo, right off Kohiki, Lanipuni Gardens. We're closer than anyone. And I've got no response to my offer. I know it's cheaper than what you pay. The one that was on Hinalo was taken out. And I don't know whose order that was, but the next one down Leilani Road is beyond the mile perimeter. So first of all, I'd like to know, was there a plant alarm that went off?
Yes.
Because years ago, that plant alarm went off and I could hear it fine. I heard it well. And it took me nearly 40 minutes to reach you guys to find out whether it's a real emergency or a test or a drill or whatever. That's too long, number one. Did you mask up? Did you or the employees at the plant mask up? Okay, well, I would like to have the opportunity. And another thing I've noticed, there's never been any disbursement models put forth for if gas comes spewing out. I don't think there's been one even slightly. If there is a model, I'd like to know about it. Because I suppose if you squirt a mister in the air, the pattern goes out and probably less falls right there at the point of dispersion as opposed to rolling out. But I live in that low spot. So I would like to know where the fire department took their reading where they found the highest reading. Okay, because really, I want my place checked, and I want a heads up, because that evening, I wound up having really an intense headache that lasted a couple of days, a soreness in the throat. I only found out about the incident the next day. And when I hear that there's a facility set up for people to go if they want, yet I had no way of knowing about it, is ridiculous. All this money from mitigation that could have been used to set up a robocall, to do independent monitoring, has sat there for decades now. And I want to ask Mike now, from a company standpoint, because when the guy from Vegas came out and we were having all that business in front of the county council, I asked him, I said, it seems to me you should have no dog in this fight as how the money's spent because you pay it in royalties regardless. He told me he thought it would be redundant to have another monitoring system. Now I heard you champion redundancy, and it is the hallmark of safety. And I want to know if you or your company has any objection to those monies being used for monitors that we all can access. Can you say clearly?
We have no objection to use that money for monitoring and any other studies or redundancy.
Excellent. I hope that you would make that suggestion to our county council.
What's the name again?
My name is John Bryant,
Okay.
and I've got two little girls, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I am very concerned.
Okay, just to be clear, PGV and ORMAC is, we should not have no say on what the county does with that money.
I agree. And I would like to know from civil defense, do you have any power in coming to ask for some of that money? Because the things that came before the county council were in regard to you coming up with a plan. And we heard the mayor say that, oh, we're going to use our standard hazmat response. Which, by the way, if it is spewing out hydrogen sulfide, really could be deadly. By the time you get there, you're just going to be calling for body bags. So unless there's a starting gun, unless there's an alarm that goes off that tells us all to get out, and living in such close proximity, I want the electronic canaries, just like your guys have. I'm in that danger zone. I want one of those canaries. That's not a lot of money for a lot of safety. Because really, our only chance is to load up in the car and get out of Dodge when it happens. But I understand that from a business point of view, the numbers you produce for everyone to look at is critical to whether you guys can operate and stay in business. And believe me, I understand the obligations of having a job and being loyal to the company. But really, we all prudently, and we're talking about health studies and all sorts of other stuff, but until there is real, hard independent data, not owned by a company that's there for profit, but that is truly independent. And I'm asking for it. You know, it's been decades now. Money's been diverted to make all sorts of stuff here in Pahoa that's nice, but what about what it was intended for? And if either one of you can ask for that system, I would appreciate it. And I would also like gas money.
I know the gentleman had a question as far as the location of the higher reading. It's between Honolulu Street and Leilani Avenue, Wakahiku Road.
I live on Hinalo. I'm offering my place rent-free to put a constant monitor.
Thank you. And one of the things we did discuss with our after-action review with all the players was improving our monitoring capability for response. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I find this, kind of, amazing because, I come out of a maritime community. That was my trade for years from the sea. And the interesting thing was that, the first thing that we always were concerned with safety of people, our people. But it's, what I think we get so much angst about is the fact that this geothermal plant, the present one, is absolutely in the wrong place. It's been sited wrong. The problem is, would you, this company, would you people actually move if we found out that you could not operate safely in this environment? Because you see, the solution to this problem, the reason we're all here is very simple. You got to keep industry away from our homes, our farms, our orchards. You got to do that. That's the way. I mean, I get upset because, in my professional life, going to sea for 25 years fishing in some of the worst weather, worst conditions in the world, right? We never could get rid of it. We could never do anything half-assed. We never had the luxury of endangering somebody else's profit. We made a decision, we went to sea, we risked our lives, but we never risked anybody else's. So why in God's name would you sit here with a plant that could possibly be disastrous? I mean, you're talking about Chernobyl. I mean, 3,000 or 4,000 men die a year at sea, ships sink, airplanes fall out of the sky and break in faces. That's just part of being a mechanical age. Nothing that we as human beings, is ever perfect, and it fails. The longer you run a piece of machinery, it fails. In fact, in my career as an engineer, we knew almost to the day when a diesel engine would fail, how many 100,000 hours down the road. The problem is that we don't have total control over your resource. We don't. You should be 10, 6 miles away from us, not in the middle of 2 subdivisions and several hundred farm lots.
Paul, I just want to add a comment. With regards to safety, I want to let everyone know that PGV is totally committed, number one, to safety. Okay? We have 30 full-time employees. They have families. They have kids, like many of us. Those employees there on the front line, we depend on them to respond accordingly, to follow the protocols, the training, so that when an event such as what happened occurs, our guys know exactly what to do. We don't want our guys getting injured. We don't want our guys getting hurt. We don't want to go and have to inform someone's wife that one of our guys got badly injured. So we are very, very serious about safety. That's number one. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
I'm a retired meteorologist with over 25 years experience in hazard modeling. I used to work at like proving ground. I'm here to tell you that there's absolutely no reason why we do not have a real-time atmospheric dispersion model that takes in the data, wind, and the gas data, and plots it out and makes it available real-time online for everybody to see if they want to check on it. This is not undoable. It requires some funding. It requires some participation from people like you in civil defense. Are you willing to work with me to develop such a system? When we were working with SO2 or sulfur dioxide issues with the volcano, we reached out to the Pacific Disaster Center on Maui because it has that capability. After they've done proof modeling for us with the SO2.
know that model. It's an appropriate model. I can tell you what the appropriate model is. If you will work with me.
Sure, glad to sit down and meet with you and discuss it. Not a problem. Sure.
Hello? I think there's one agency, another agency I wish was here is the Department of Health. It sounds like it's supposed to be working together with the community, and one of them is not even here. So one of my questions is, what was the level of H2S at the point of release?
We did not pick up any H2S at the source because the plume went vertical and it went away from our monitors that are close to the source. So we didn't pick up any readings, and what we usually do is we go out to the perimeter to monitor it.
So if you're conscious of your employees that are right there, you don't want to know what's going on right now.
We have meters right at location, but we didn't get any alarms from the meters, and our employees carry around the portable monitoring devices in the event that there are elevated levels. And there was no report of elevated levels on portable monitoring or the fixed monitoring that was close to the source.
Oh, actually, you just brought up something. Why can't the residents have portable monitoring systems for their home? That sounds like a quick fix.
I think that was mentioned to get the county and some funding to help support that, and we support that too.
Okay, my other question is, I can't remember what you said, but to when the monitor or whatever you had released so that it wouldn't explode, you also injected something back in the ground?
Well, the plant, everything that comes out goes back down. So what is condensed at the steam release facility is captured in a line pond, and then we inject it back to the reinjection system.
Do you know where that goes?
Sure.
In the ground, and where did it disperse to?
We know the specific location, but how it goes out into the formation is estimated.
So, I'm sure you've heard in the last few days, I'm from the Kapoho area, and there was a massive fish die-off in our area.
Right.
Not to have seen by me in 30 years, but something like that.
Yeah, I read about it.
Okay, so it's rumors, but rumors start with what are the facts, and then you're kind of telling me you don't really have facts, you kind of have an estimation. So is there a way, and I think the person or the position that would have to be monitoring that is a hydrologist, that because we're downflow from you, what effect your injections have down below you?
Right. So, PGV is scheduled to have a community meeting this coming Thursday, and one of the topics we'll get into in more detail is how we protect the groundwater. So we know that where we are injecting specific depths, etc., and the location right there. What we believe occurs is that the injecting fluid ultimately recycles back to the production side and comes back up.
Well, just as a summary, you've been there 30 years. 20? Okay, we'll round it off. 20. And you said that your MO is safety first.
Yes.
But it sounds to me, by listening to this meeting, that you're just coming up with some of these plans and research. And so you're thinking 20 years, you'd have it a little bit more scientifically based and actually working. And that's why I wish the Department of Health was here, because they're supposed to advocate for the people. Sure. And they're not even here. So thank you for attending.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I also get very confused about their whole idea of re-injection in an assessment cloud zone, where I feel earthquakes all the time, and I feel it's now rotten eggs by different people's houses, like today at that wonderful event. I went down the driveway and I smelled rotten eggs. And like, because there's all these places where stuff just comes up from the earth, and if you're re-injected, there's just nothing safe. For me, those two things together make no sense. So that's one huge issue that I live with, and of course I would love to see the plant not there anymore, and I'm still appreciating you guys and your friend answering our questions. And it's a hot seat, and I appreciate you being here. As far as the complaints with civil defense, is there some way that there could be an online situation set up so that in real time we could complain and it would then be immediately reported to you, and it also would be something that could be on record for the future, because one of the things that we've dealt with in Puna Pono Alliance is that our complaints are not acknowledged. You know, they'll say, oh, no one complained about that, but if it's not recorded, then we can't prove that we've done that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, right now we don't have that reporting process in place, a formal online complaint reporting, but we do have the forms in the back that has the Civil Defense Office email address. So you could actually start doing that now by emailing what concerns you have in currently.
Or faxing that form in.
I apologize, I didn't include the fax number, but I do have our office phone number, and if you call, we'll give you the fax number.
Mm-hmm. I mean, another thought would be, because there's a lot of people who are very concerned. You know, we all basically feel like we take our life in our hands living here, and we love living here. And so I know there's a lot of us with a lot of resources if we can help. If there's some sort of community civil defense interface group we want to start, that we can make these things happen. Like the gentleman who was just here, perhaps also could be someone who can help. Let's create a new organization that actually gets something done, since the Department of Health is doing nothing, right? We've done nothing for years. And we're up for it. There's a lot of us in the world, so you know, I just want to put that out to you. My name's Beverly Frederick.
Thank you. And you folks do have an active CERT team in your community, which is community members that are in support of emergency response. So that's one organization that currently exists in your community, and that's one.
I'm more thinking of these special things that were needed that are not happening, that isn't necessarily first response kind of thing, okay, but things that need to happen so that we will feel more safe, like having these things in place. Like the gentleman was talking about, getting meters out there, getting something where we can then make people understand how many complaints actually have been, just because they hear they all are. We have this here. If no one else is showing it, if the Department of Health isn't showing it, if Civil Defense isn't showing it, we can show the paperwork right here that we have made these complaints. We time exactly when and where and what happened.
And I think what everyone's asking for is good information so you can make good decisions in a timely manner to protect yourselves. And that's what we need to provide.
Yeah, and as difficult as the situation is, that we keep the dialogue. We keep doing what we're doing right now. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I got a couple questions here for Mike and then one for Civil Defense. Mike, I was at a meeting a while back when you, out of the goodness of your heart, were going to give $750,000 to a experimental thing for the state to produce hydrogen. Now, That's $750,000 out of the goodness of your heart. You know, it would be nice out of the goodness of your heart if you provide meters for all the community. It would be wonderful. We wouldn't have to go through the county. So maybe you could agree to do that, possibly. You provide the meters, you buy the meters, and you will get us set up. How about that?
Good idea.
What? Oh, no, I want a good idea. Okay, yes or no? Why can't you do it?
I cannot commit to it right now, but I can definitely look into it.
Well, you're going to look into it for sure. So will you call your bosses, maybe call them over there in Israel or where they live?
They're in Reno.
They're in Reno, right? Call them in Reno and ask them so that you can tell us at your meeting on the 28th whether you're going to provide meters for the community. That would be wonderful. That's 3 or 4 days from now. You can have an answer by then. Okay, thank you. That's the first thing. Second thing, Mike, is it possible for you, because if you're wanting to protect the community so wonderfully, could you have some kind of dye put into your injectant so that we could know where it was coming up? You know, a simple dye that doesn't really poison the environment or anything. We would know it. And could you also put that dye when you're in your caustic soda so when it goes up in the air, you could do some kind of dye that we could monitor to see where it goes? I'll bet you that's real possible too. Could you look into that for us?
I will.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you can have an answer for us pretty soon.
Okay, thank you for your questions, and we're going to give these two people a 3-minute break because I blew it, because on the schedule I was supposed to introduce Tom Ruben, and then the thing sort of got into the question and answer period, so I said let it go. But I think he just wants a few words. Can you guys stick around for a little while? So now I'd like to introduce Tom Ruben. He's an attorney from New Mexico, and he's worked with a lot of Native American people on land and mineral rights and water issues. So, Tom Ruben, thank you for coming all this way. And then when we get back into your question and answer period, can you guys ask shorter questions and not dive on so much? Because you guys sounding like me.
Everybody wants to moderate. Thank you very much. I apologize for sitting down, but I will sit down here. And I want to say I was very honored when Bob Petrucci, can you hear? I was very honored when Bob Petrucci asked me to say a few words here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to contribute whatever I can to the effort here on behalf of the community. I just want to introduce myself a little bit quickly. I have an undergraduate degree in geophysical engineering from Colorado School of Mines, a JD lawyer degree from New York University, Ruth Tilden Kern Public Interest Law program, and I've been practicing public interest law for most of my life, as I interpret it. I'm now with a law firm of Luebben, Johnson & Barnhouse in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which focuses on Native American rights. And that's primarily what I do, but in the areas of land, water, and natural resources. I currently represent tribes and individual Native Americans throughout the western United States. I represented the Tele Defense Fund in what I might refer to as Geothermal War #1 back in the 80s and 90s. And this looks like GW2 to me, shaping up here this time around. I also participated in 2 contested case hearings and litigated a case captioned Medeiros versus Hawaii County Planning Commission, where Alice Medeiros was the lead plaintiff. Is Alice here by any chance tonight? Well, in any event, she was very committed to helping the community by litigating that case. You know, I note that there are some interesting similarities between the Native American communities that I work with and the Puna community, in that they are under-resourced, economically disadvantaged, and politically disadvantaged communities. And of course, those communities are frequently a target for outside forces seeking to exploit whatever resources they may have, whatever local community resources there are, for profit. And I've been through several fights of that sort in the last 40 years that I've been representing Native Americans. And of course, here in Hawaii, we all know the history that outside forces have tended to see Hawaii as an opportunity to make money at the expense of Hawaiians, and as well as more recent residents.
20 years.
Right. I want to say a few words about litigation and about the contested case hearing process. As you know from the report on the activities with the legislature in Honolulu, HB 106, which was one of its objectives was to restore contested case hearings to geothermal permitting. And I want to emphasize that the contested case hearing process is extremely important and is perhaps, from the standpoint of a lawyer, your best option for protecting yourselves and remedying the problems that exist with geothermal development. In 1984, the initial legislation dealing with the regulation of geothermal development provided for a contested case as part of the ordinary process under the Hawaii Administrative Procedure Act to challenge state and county decisions. And there is a whole body of administrative procedure law, and that includes, in most states, administrative procedure acts on the state level, as well as a federal administrative procedure act. And these are bodies of law that are intended to provide due process of law and an opportunity to challenge state and local decisions on the part of citizens. That contested case opportunity here in Hawaii with respect to geothermal was taken away by the legislature in 1987, which substituted mediation for contested case hearings. And the reason given by the legislature at that time was to provide a simpler process for geothermal permitting, a simpler process for geothermal permitting. Of course, that's just a euphemism for the fact that they were tired of the inconvenience and expense of going through the contested case hearings as we had been. As I said, I participated in 2 of them, and of course they wanted a simpler process, and above all they wanted a less expensive process, and one that would more assuredly lead to the permitting result that they sought. Some of you may have participated in those 1989 contested case hearings. Now, an important point here is that mediation, as it has been framed in the legislation and was then and is now being provided to you, is definitely no substitute for due process of law. The contested case proceeding gave us at least 3 really important aspects of due process of law, and that was the right of discovery, which is to get documents and to conduct depositions of people who are relevant to the proceeding. It gave us the opportunity to present witnesses on behalf of the positions that we took, as well as to cross-examine witnesses on who were presenting on behalf of the proponents of the particular permit that was at issue. All of that was taken away when the legislature took away contested case hearings and provided mediation instead. Now, as those of you who may have participated in mediation at that time in 1989 know, it wasn't the kind of mediation process that I, as a lawyer, am familiar with in my practice, where mediation is used by two parties who want to achieve a settlement and who identify a mediator acceptable to both parties and voluntarily enter into the process. They may or may not achieve the kind an acceptable result, but the process is entirely voluntary. And when mediation was substituted for contested case hearings in challenges to geothermal permits, it wasn't voluntary at all. It was more like you're convicted of a capital crime and you're going to be executed, so you're given the opportunity to negotiate or mediate with someone in authority to decide whether it's going to be by lethal injection, or it's going to be by hanging, or it's going to be by firing. You know, the outcome is predetermined. And in the case of those proceedings that took place in the late 80s and the early 90s, the predetermined outcome was that there was going to be a geothermal permit. So it was just a question of, well, can we engage the community in a process that might give them a few benefits and might make them feel better, but the outcome has already been decided. So in my view, it was a perverted mediation process, and I realize that the process that is being called mediation this time around is different, and I have not participated in it, so I'm not in a position to be knowledgeably critical of it as I am the earlier process, and I've been assured that Peter Adler, the mediator, is an individual of the highest integrity and ethics, and at this point in time, I don't have any personal experience to challenge that assessment. But I am concerned that, again, it's not a voluntary mediation undertaken by parties who want to achieve a settlement out of court, who choose the mediator who is acceptable to them. And I have some concerns that that process may, in fact, have the effect of jamming the ability of the community to get the kinds of health studies that I know you wanted for 30 years. Now, I do want to keep it short here, so I just want to recommend to you a new book called The Super Fairy Chronicles by Kuhan Pape and Jerry Mander. Now, Jerry, are you familiar with it? Okay. Those of you who haven't read it, I highly recommend it as being relevant to what's going on here. It's a very different story, a very different situation, and there's also a very similar story. It's a good read, it's a good political analysis, and frankly, if I were going to write a book about Geothermal War II, I would start with this book as an outline. It would provide a good outline, and what I don't want to go into at great length, but what I'm saying here is that there are some very interesting and concerning cultural and political problems here in Hawaii that I think this community is facing and that were reflected in the Super Fairy fight. Consequently, I think everybody can learn something from that. Lastly, I just want to encourage the community to not get discouraged. I think at this point in time, it is discouraging. We've just lost the effort in the legislature to restore contested case hearings and to restore geothermal subzones. One of the contested cases I went through was the geothermal subzone contested case. And even though we lost both of those contested case proceedings, and for that matter, we lost the Maderos case, they were very, very important for the purpose of educating the community and for the purpose of educating the decision makers should they choose to be responsive to the information that we provided them. And of course, the fact that they weren't just really highlights the problem. As I said, I've been through several of these fights, and the community, or the, as I say, economically and politically disadvantaged group that's the target here, may lose, but you know, you can't win if you don't keep fighting. And I want to say, too, that the world is watching. Industry is certainly watching. Industry is extremely anxious that you don't prove the ongoing toxic effects of low-level exposure to hydrogen sulfide. All over the world, industry has a huge stake in that not being true. You're also being watched by activists around the world. You know, Jerry Mander helped us with Pele Defense Fund. Jerry drafted the full-page ad that the Pele Defense Fund ran, in which I believe the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the San Francisco Chronicle back at that time, and that was very instrumental in informing people around the world of the fight that was going on. And of course, the sooner that this struggle can be elevated to national exposure and international exposure, the better. I got some, Jim Albertini, I was talking with him out front before the meeting started, and Jim kind of gave me a little insight that is really important in working with communities like this and in the community's own self-assessment. And sometimes the community feels like it has no leverage, and this is a good point in time to make that point, because you just lost in the legislature. And despite Russell's very vigorous efforts to get some ameliorated legislation here, you may be feeling like you don't have any leverage, and I'm working with other communities right now that have the same problem. And the insight is that sometimes the leverage that you have, and the only leverage that you have, is the community itself, and the community's ability to organize and to take whatever actions they can as a community in opposition to the threat that they face. So that is leverage, and that is, at the bottom line, the leverage that can be used to restructure the situation to achieve the objectives that you need to achieve to protect the community health. And lastly, I want to say that some days ago I attended a meeting of a group that I'll characterize as Puna Pono Alliance steering committee, and Hirakami was present. And Harry asked everybody to go around and introduce themselves, which at the outset I thought was a little odd because I knew everybody knew everybody. I was the only one that didn't know everybody. But Harry had a very important point. And after those introductions were finished, I realized what it was. And it was that there is tremendous expertise the skill in this community to carry on this fight. And, you know, it's not. It's absolutely not the community of hippies and drug dealers that I know you have been called in the press. And so I just wanted to note that tremendous expertise. The meteorologist who spoke, I think, really highlights that reality. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Bob. I did overlook that. Let me just organize my thoughts for a moment about this. I mean, there are two levels on which this happens. One, of course, is when you're in a contested case hearing or you're in court, it's absolutely critical to create the best record that you can for appeal, because very often we can count on losing litigation at what I call the trial court level or a contested case level, and you must have a very thorough and adequate record to go up on appeal. But it's also very important, more broadly, that you make this record, and that is that folks take notes, that they keep a journal of what's happening, that they write letters, that they make phone calls, that they make very sure that the public record reflects the problems and the concerns and the input of the community on the issues that you're facing. Anything else?
One more time, Tom. That's a very good segue into what I'm supposed to remind you about, that there's forums on both State Department of Health and Puna Pono Alliance on the incident, and it's always good to document. I'm in the state government, and it's a very important part of the process. So let's get back. The crowd came down a little bit, but you know, the whole thing. What we have now is, you know, we're talking about the future development and HB 106. But you know, I would think that we all would want what we have to be absolutely overcautious, over-monitoring, overthinking, and so you know, this whole thing on continuous improvement is what we've got to strive for. We've got to plan, do, study, act, and repeat the cycle. We're never good enough. We're never safe enough. We're never clean enough. We keep on having to improve on ourselves, and we use this model at our charter school, and it's worked for us. But you know, to be in a continuous cycle of improvement is something really important, no matter what field you are, no matter what trade you are. And I think that we have to do that. I didn't get that politically disadvantaged part though. But I'm you know, I use slightly disadvantaged word, socioeconomic, and you know, and but now I'm politically disadvantaged. I gotta look that one up sometime. So yeah. So we're gonna get back into the question and answer. Would you be so kind, you guys, to? Thank you very much.
My name is Tom Travis. My name is Tom Travis. I have before me the brochure that you put out that talks about levels. There's a statement on one in that brochure that says hydrogen sulfide is released from active volcano vents and can be part of ambient air conditions downwind of eruptive activity. Although hydrogen sulfide is part of the eruption, I think chemical reactions, especially in Hawaii, make it unlikely that hydrogen sulfide is downwind of eruptive activity. I would ask if you review that to be sure that it's accurate.
name's
Mike.
Hi, Mike.
What's
So,
your name?
Scott.
Hi, Scott.
So were you, let me just say that I heard unusual noises on Sunday, March 10th, after 9 p.m., and I'm wondering if you were at the plant on Sunday the 10th. Do you know if anything unusual that was happening?
I was not at the plant at 9 p.m. on Sunday, and I was not made aware of from our folks that there was anything unusual, because we typically have morning meetings and evening meetings and daily reports of what happens at the plant, and there was no report of unusual.
So if there was a release of the pipes or like the pressure release on Wednesday, you would have known about it?
Definitely.
So the noise I heard, I don't know.
Well, where do you live?
I'm about 3 miles from the plant. Pretty much north.
That kind of reminds me, I remember Tom Travis asked me, and there was a loud boom on the ocean a couple months ago or whatever. Folks thought maybe something was going on at PTV, and it was not, we could not corroborate anything, so it's difficult for me to answer right now without even going back to look. We can go look at our noise stations and see if it was a blip at that time, something unusual.
Right. Okay, and then I also heard similar, slightly different noise on the 15th, on Friday, this afternoon. So 2 days after the computer-generated release. You know?
Again, I would have to go back and look at noise charts and whatnot, but let me suggest something. When you first hear something like that, just call it in. And then we usually dispatch people out to make sure, see everything's okay, or if anything unusual occurring, and we'll definitely get back to you.
Okay.
You can call we have a response line.
So then I have sort of a general question for you. So I'm not sure what your responsibilities or your options are for your position, but I'm bringing up this 20 years thing, and I'm wondering, if I'm sitting at home and there's a gas cloud coming towards my house that's just been released, what's the evacuation plan? How do I get notified that it's coming, and how do the people get to me to get me out of there?
Good question. What would happen is, again, as an incident occurs, you can contact with PGV as well as sending the first responders out. If levels are being detected, in the case of a mandatory evacuation of 10 parts per million, we would be notifying the residents of that mandatory evacuation. The ways we get the messages out currently is through the radio, through our mass notification, and if anything, door to door by the first responders themselves. We are looking at ways to improve the notification. As I mentioned, if you're not currently enrolled, if you wouldn't mind getting one of those sheets from the people that get enrolled. But we're also, like I discussed earlier, looking at whether or not a siren might be another means of notifying you instantaneously, so you can make a decision and then evacuate.
Okay. What I'm looking at is, let's say I bought a car 20 years ago, and then instead of a seatbelt and an airbag, I put a monitor on the dashboard, see how hard I hit it. 20 years later, I would hope that there'd be a seatbelt and an airbag in my car. And I'm wondering, where's the airbag? Because I know that you took records of what was going on and monitored it. And I'm thinking, if I hit the dashboard and they were monitoring it, well, I wish that the airbag was in sooner than 20 years after I bought it. So that's why I'm asking, really what's the plan? I mean, I know someone joked, they said, well, the plan is run uphill. Somebody, and I noticed you weren't around 20 years ago, but you're around now, and so, what is the plan, really? Like, what do I do? I'm sitting at home, I'm, selling drugs or whatever people do.
The plan would be, again, if we make an advisory to evacuate, if you can leave your home, leave the subdivision, we're looking at a 3-mile radius, so we'd be telling you where to go as far as an evacuation center and where would be the, evaluate safe areas.
So what you're saying is you're anticipating that there will be a way to get the word out so that I can find out about it.
Correct. We're expecting to be, one is made aware that something has happened, either through PGB or through the residents reporting something, and then using what tools we have, which is getting the word back out to you. And as I mentioned, trying to develop new ways that PGB, along with civil defense, can notify you more immediately, such as the sirens.
So it sounds like, that sounds like a dream. Okay, what I want to know is, let's say there's 3,000 people within 3 miles of PGB. So when will there be a plan? When do you think there could be a plan? Like, what's the time? How long will it take? Will there be a plan so that all 3,000 people can be taken out of there before the hydrogen sulfide were to make the old ladies into dead?
If you're asking for a long-term relocation plan of the residents,
no? Just like, it's not released, it's coming towards you. We're going to get all 3,000 of you out of there. How long is it going to take before, when will it be when I can rest and I can say, oh, well, it's okay because there's an evacuation plan. I feel okay now. Like, in a year?
well, I think we've been working on one. I just came back. I'll gladly sit down with the committee and discuss the response plan and evacuation plan if there's future opportunities.
So it's still just, it's just on paper.
As far as like the process of notifying you and expecting or anticipating people to self-evacuate, yes.
So I guess I'm wanting you to think it's really, like I do, to think it's really funny that someone bought a car 20 years ago and on the dashboard with no seatbelt, there's still just a monitor measuring how hard my head is. I want you to think that's as funny as I do.
Thank you.
And I guess the second thing, I do want one more thing. I'd like to know when. Because like people are saying, this is like a test machine. Like if it does a really good job, then we can put a lot more in it. And then you're just, civil defense, right? And I know you probably have a million different things, but sulfide is pretty bad.
Sure. I mean, it's obvious that the community this is long overdue as far as having the plan, and we're committing the resources to get it done.
Having a plan might take a year. Then how long does it take before you can actually have the equipment to get all the people out of there? That's a whole nother. How long?
Thank you.
Daryl, I have a follow-up question for you. My name's Paul Titan. I live within a mile of the plant. And, the first notice I got that there was a problem on Wednesday was when Bob called me. That was our notification program. And I'm curious about yours because I am on your list. You said we should sign up. I've signed up. I've received texts when there's a tsunami. So here I was out painting in the yard. I got a call from Bob, gave me a heads up. I got a call from Mike as well, a little bit later. Mahalo, Mike, I appreciate that call. At 5 o'clock, you sent out an email. Okay, I'm not sitting in front of my computer looking at an email. So there was no other way I was notified. Didn't get a text, didn't get a phone call. So I'm curious. First, when did you find out about the incident?
At 4:06 in the afternoon.
Okay, and you put out an email at 5 o'clock.
No, the email actually went out at 4:40 after we confirmed what was happening in the readings that we were getting from PGB. So the message was actually released at 4:40.
Okay, so I received an email that dated 5:01. And I guess my curiosity is, why didn't I get a text?
And I'm glad you went and checked why you didn't get a text. One of the things that I did mention early on in the presentation was that we did not do a phone or voice notification, which was an error on our part, and we definitely corrected that. So I think we're trying to make those improvements. So it's good to know if some people didn't get a message, it'd be nice to know that. It is a computer-based system. If there were some glitches in it, we can look into it.
So you're saying some people got texts and phone calls and some didn't, or no?
Well, I guess unless people tell us they didn't get something, we don't know. But I did get confirmation that the messages, some people did get the messages.
So some people did get text messages?
Correct.
Well, that's interesting, because I did. So then the other question is,
how would you know which people in your system would be within that 3-mile radius if you guys are happy?
The current product that we have doesn't allow us to create a polygon map of the district, but we're trying to get it upgraded so we can actually pinpoint the residences within that polygon, that 3-mile radius. So we are trying to fix that as we speak.
So what are you going to do in the meantime? Just send it back to everybody?
Pretty much, we sent it island-wide on this particular incident.
Okay. And then you opened up the community center as a possible evacuation area.
Correct.
So if there was a real big plume and it was a mandatory evacuation, and I got a text saying you better get out of there, here's the problem. I live in lower Puna. And actually I looked at the weather, the wind was blowing towards Milani. I would have had to drive through the plume to get to the community center. So you would have killed people if they didn't have masks, if they had driven through a plume. So do you actually look at which way the wind is blowing before you open the community center and you tell people to go there?
Correct. When we identify a site that we're going to tell people to go to, it's going to be based on the safe conditions. In this case, because we were seeing or getting from the field the 0 readings, and we were hearing that people were still smelling the product and were leaving, we felt that it was safe and prudent to send people to the community center to walk. But if we had gotten readings or indications that sending people in that direction would have been dangerous, we would have come up with an alternative route or instructions.
Okay, I appreciate that. You know, based on this incident, it seems like the only thing that's working in the community is us calling each other. Right. And that doesn't work for me.
Sure. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. My name is Gretchen Metcalf, and I'm here with a few questions. First of all, since the onset of geothermal 20 years ago, how many incidents have you had?
If you're referring to like the spreadsheet that I provided, I think I had counted maybe 50 or 60. You know what the number was?
Or 30.
Yeah, let's say 50, 20 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
It depends on the severity of the incident.
And when you have these incidents, you must file incident reports, correct?
Correct.
And do we, as a community, have access to being able to read those incident reports to understand further information?
You can contact the Department of Health, Virginia branch. I can give you the contact info.
Okay, thank you. And I also am interested in a personal tour of the geothermal plant. Is it possible to do that?
Yes.
How would I schedule that?
I provided my email address. Ready? M.
Yeah.
Kaleikini.
Slower, please.
M. Kaleikini. At format ormat.com. And anyone else who wrote that down, you're welcome to send me an email requesting a tour.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have to ask.
I want to say thank you for the water. Thank you, Mahalo.
I have a question about all these parts per million and parts per billion. 2 questions. One is, are the levels, the safe levels, are those for a healthy person of a certain age?
Correct. The OSHA levels are based on a healthy employee. The age does not matter, but just respiratory health does matter.
Okay, well, I would assume that young children, there's many young children, and people with health problems, such as you find in a residential neighborhood, would be affected by much lower levels. What is
being done to protect those people?
So I don't know how others are affected. Like I said, we abide by OSHA, our employees. But to answer how we're being protected is our folks, we have the monitoring stations where they are located. We have monitoring on our location. And our employees are continuously monitoring the process to make sure that there's no leaks. We do a lot of preventative maintenance. We've been here 20 years, and it's not like we haven't done anything, because we continually make sure that we have to change out piping, we have to change out gaskets. The mechanical integrity of the system is very important to maintaining and minimizing emission events.
I'm glad to hear you're doing all that, and I know people, your team are very dedicated, but if the numbers only apply to healthy people, and you have a neighborhood with all kinds of people, elderly, sick, babies, the numbers are not going to help them.
Aloha, my name is Tony Roberts. I wanted to say thank you to both of you for taking time on Saturday afternoon to answer some concerns. I had one question, and clearly addressed everything that you spoke about. But at the very beginning of your conversation about what happened, you said that there was interruption in the transition process. And I haven't heard whether that was a cooperative interruption between you and HELCO, issue, a youth issue, if that's being addressed, and whether or not that's going to be a trigger for the future. The other thing I wanted to say is to Chief Olivera, my husband got an SMS, I didn't. We both got the email. And my smartphone gets the email instead of the SMS. Sorry. The other thing I wanted to say is community resilience is all about community watching out for themselves. So a phone free in the community, neighborhood watch is based on neighborhood blocks knowing each other and having the phone free. So while our government is there, it's on us. If we have concerns, we need to act on those concerns. That's just my 2 cents. And it doesn't cost us more as a taxpayer to act on our own concerns. Anyway, thank you both for taking your Saturday afternoon. I am a consumer of power, so I cannot criticize. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay would be the helpful response.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Nacho, I'm president of Voya Company. Thanks for having me here tonight. Mike sent me an email on Thursday saying that we're having this meeting today. No. He asked that if there were any questions like this with particular reference to the transmission system with and it has come up. With me here tonight, I have Mr. Dave Okamura. Dave, can you stand up so they get to know you? Dave Okamura is an engineer. He's actually a superintendent in our substation division. I wanted him to be here to hear firsthand concerns of the community. Obviously, what we do as a direct impact on you, in this particular instance, and I'd like to apologize on behalf of HELCO because it was actually a transmission system issue that triggered the event. And Mike has been very gracious not to throw stones at us to just explain what happened. We have 2 transmission lines coming in that interconnects the Puna Geothermal Venture facility, 2 69,000 volt transmission lines. We have devices, well, let me explain the route. There's 1 transmission line that goes from Komana all the way down to PGB, and there's 1 transmission line that goes from Puna power plant over to PGB. What occurred on that day is we actually had a problem on the line that comes from Komana to PGB. It's about 20 miles. Okay? We have devices on both ends that can estimate where the problem is. Our best estimate is related to trees. We believe it's the easier trees that have been a nuisance on our system for a while. devices indicate the problem was near the non-volume. Normally, what occurs is, even if you have a problem like that, the devices detect a problem, remove or de-energize one line, but we have another line where the power can be rerouted, and we don't have this new event. What occurred on that day was we were doing some preventive maintenance right at the switching station at PNV. And when we do that preventive maintenance, the devices that sense the problem, we actually had it designed to change the sensitivity. So when we had the problem of the line from Comana to PGV, the other line from Puna to PGV also turned on. We have since gone back and looked at our practice of changing the sensitivity while we do preventive maintenance, and we've changed the settings. Essentially said, well, we're going to change the way we operate. We're not going to be that sensitive. So we changed the computer settings at PGV, and we looked across the whole island at our practice. And we looked at it was only at PGV, and we changed all of that so that that particular incident, that particular technical issue should not occur. We still have issues with the primary cause, which is choosing branches. And what we're doing is we're doing more extensive trimming right now. For the past week, we've been trimming, past couple of weeks, we've been trying to trim a lot more. No, not at all here. We don't want this kind of transmission line problem happening again. Now, I heard a gentleman saying that we may have heard noises from the plant. I don't know, I just listened, but it might have been our work on the trees, trying to trim the trees in the area and on the wall, we may have heard some construction or tree trimming activity. Since we have two lines that we know of known issues, we have a lot of clearance from the line, but even if we have a lot of clearance, we want to get even more because of the issue and the impact that we do to the plant and the community. The other line from Puna to PGV, we did detailed inspections of that, and that line is pretty clear of trees and branches. So we're pretty confident that we're not going to have at least trees and branches. But the line from Comana to PGV, that one we have done extensive inspections, and we're taking the steps to get additional trees. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. Hello. I'm Dr. Michael Hudson. I'm a biologist. We're doing some physics research on energy. And I'm just looking for some common ground here. It's very clear that energy is the major driver of everything. So without energy, everything stops, basically. So how we provide the energy is the key thing. I was looking for a common ground because, well, first you guys are defending PGV, and that's proper. You work for them. I was wondering if we could come to a common ground that we provide the best and cleanest energy for everybody. And with that supersede your loyalty to a particular technique, such as geothermal. So, for example, Tesla had what are called free energy devices 100 years ago, and these have been seriously suppressed by the powers that be. There's 6,000 patents, 4,000 of them related to energy that are impounded by the military and prevented from our use, for example. And many inventors have been suppressed and so on. But at the moment, it looks very good that we can get power directly from the vacuum, we can get power from cold fusion, we can get power from what are called low energy nuclear reactors. And I just heard of a solar cell system that has a concentrator that spins the solar cells, and they've gotten 20 times the power per solar cell area out of their thing. It's called B3, it's very interesting. But I was just wondering, could we all reach a common ground and all of us go for the best possible system rather than, say, committed to geothermal? So the question is, if there were a better system, would you turn it off and replace it with a better one? And can we work toward that? Thank you.
So, I am somewhat familiar with Tesla, and I'm not familiar with the other technologies you mentioned. But, you know, definitely if there are better technologies out there that's available, I fully support it. Definitely support that.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank you guys for all your time. My name is Greg Gatloff. I live in Roynstar Airport. And I had a couple observations. Mike, you said there was a hydrologist review for the plume or groundwater, your influence of what you're doing to the groundwater with your injection wells, correct? Okay, now, do you have like the same laws that protect the fracking industry from protecting your trade secrets or the chemicals that you put in to protect your wells? And the next part of my question is, which I know you do protect your wells with certain chemicals, and I'm sure they're probably a trade secret. What would the worst case scenario be for a, an unabated release of brine and or gas for the worst case scenario? How would that affect the community? I know the hydrogen sulfide is wonderful, but what about all the other chemicals that we don't even know about?
Okay, let me start by talking about the groundwater. We have a very detailed groundwater monitoring program, and the oversight is by the Department of Health Clean Water Branch, who oversees underground injection control. So historically, we take samples of the groundwater system close by and around our area, and we check for constituents that may be a result of the geothermal process. And so that is still ongoing on the groundwater monitoring side. As far as chemicals, and as far as what you mentioned, fracking, our geothermal system, we do not do fracking like you are familiar with the chemicals that you're not with. All of our chemicals need to be approved for use by Department of Health and the EPA, Region 9. They're the Clean Water Branch, is EPA. Safe Drinking Water Branch is Department of Health at the state level. Every chemical we use needs to be approved. So all of that is public information. There's material safety data sheets that you can look at. Now, some of the chemicals may have some confidential aspect of it, but what it does, which is we use it for corrosion inhibitors to prolong and the piping, mechanical integrity. Also, we also use it for oxygen scavenging, again for corrosion related. So that's the chemicals and the injection and the groundwater monitoring. And what was that second part? Oh, worst case scenario.
What would we expect as far as if you had an uncontrolled release?
Okay.
We all plan on that. We don't want to see it, but it's going to happen someday.
I'd like to share that I believe a worst case scenario did occur. And some folks were here. I mean, it was in June of 1991 when one of our production wells had an uncontrolled, unabated geothermal release that lasted 31 hours. That was worst case. The estimates for H2S in the community was around 12 parts per million. As far as estimates of other particulate matters, it's only been estimates. But that definitely, to me, was a worst case scenario. And you can compare it. 1991, 31 hours, unabated geothermal release, compared to March 2013, 15-minute abated release. That's how far we've come.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. My name is Barb Cummins, and I have three questions. One for Mike. Mike, can you tell me what height the monitors are currently at? That's the monitors that are out there all the time. Can you tell me what the height is that they are stationed at?
So our monitors, I believe, is 4 meters, right? 4 meters, which is a little over 12 feet above ground.
My next question then is, would PGV be willing to bring those down to a much lower level?
We are willing, and our environmental safety person is actually in discussion with the Department of Health, just to make sure they're okay.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I am a little surprised that it hasn't been done already, because I know this was raised at the Hawaii County Council some months ago, and I'm disturbed actually to find that it's still at the same height. But I'm just saying that at the moment to let you know that disappoints me a little bit.
Let me also explain that the reason why it's at 4 meters is because it's an EPA requirement, and we were following the EPA protocol in collaboration with the Department of Health and Clean Air Branch. That's why we need to get their okay that we deviate from the EPA requirement.
So EPA were requesting for H2S monitoring to be at 4 meters. Is that what you're saying?
For our particular monitoring station, yes.
Okay, interesting. I have a question for Daryl as well. Daryl, I've heard Hirakami mention, and you may know that he was in your job some years ago, that he actually wrote a plan for evacuation for emergency response for the area. Do you know if that plan is still in existence, and would that stop you from having to reinvent the wheel again by starting a discussion right now? Could we not look at that plan and put it into process now?
Since assuming the position, I've been going through all the documents and whatever information I can find that's currently in the civil defense possession. I know there's a new plan, and that's what I've been able to locate. I haven't been able to locate any pre-existing or older plans at this time.
Would you be willing to talk to Harry about that plan and to ask him when it was given, and then perhaps try and locate it in the files of the civil defense?
He was actually one of the first calls I made when coming back to work, as far as, you know, his expertise in tracking him. So
did you actually ask him that question?
I have been in discussion exactly on PGV events and issues. Yes.
Did you ask him the question that asked him when he actually made that report?
No, I talked to him about his particular plan.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
That's great. Okay. My next question is for the manager of HELCO. I would be really interested to hear whether or not HELCO, after hearing the community's concern about geothermal, whether or not you would be willing to look at the possibility of providing the power that you're requiring for the grid, the 50 megawatts, by another means like perhaps solar. Would you be willing to look at that to safeguard the community at this point?
Okay, during our whole planning process for how to supply energy for our customers, it's actually a public process where we look at all resources. Geothermal is just one of them. Solar is also one of them. We look at a whole gamut of resources. When we do that process, it's a public process, so people can actually give input. We are actually in that process right now, and we're getting close to actually going back to the public, laying out a general outline of what our plan is going forward. The thing with 4K is the availability. The difference between geothermal and 4K, geothermal is available all the time, right? 4K is available in the day. And in order to make it equivalent, we're going to have to do a lot more storage. We have to accept storage technology. And right now, when we compare economics, it's not comparable. But it is an option that we look at wind. I just want to say to the group here, it is our position. We are of the position that we would like to, and we have already put out an article for more geothermal energy. But it's not geothermal energy in this disregard the health and safety issue. When we look at the evaluations, we expect companies like PGV or any other company that is going to respond to the RFP, that they follow all the regulations and take into consideration the health and safety.
Hello, my name is Diane Thomas, and thank you for Carol, for being with us, and Bruce and Lindsay. I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments, I guess. First of all, I want to say thank you because both Mike and Daryl were responsive to my phone calls. Mike, what is the elevation of the plant?
We're about 700 feet above sea level.
You're at 700?
Yeah, approximately, depending on where you're at on location.
Okay. I'm at 700 as well. And when I saw the plume, and then I could smell the H2S there at 700 feet. So I just want to point out that it's not just a concern when you're down at the low points down the road. It's a concern at the high points as well, because the plume goes up and then comes back down again. Which is why you were saying that you can't measure it right there at the source because it's going up. And I wanted to reiterate what Paul had said, because Paul actually said what I was going to say, about the emails. I've been on the civil defense email list for a long time, and it's wonderful to be notified when there's going to be a roadblock, but again, I didn't get the email came in at 5:01 on my email as well, okay? And I didn't even see it until the next day because I was too involved running back and forth and making phone calls and meeting with Mike down the road. And I wouldn't have seen it either. If it hadn't been for, because I was just driving up when it first occurred, my son heard it, called my husband, he looked out, saw the plume. I got there and saw the plume and made phone calls. So if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have known either. And we have a concern again of going toward the plant to get out as well. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Aloha. My name is Mo. I have a question for the manager of HELCO. I'm wondering if you can enlighten us on why they're putting extra heavy power lines down on Kapoho Road. I know they cleared away a lot of trees and did all that, but they're now these huge cables. And has it anything to do with the road being paved, the Kalapana-Kapoho Road, with heavy-duty pavement, like 2 layers? It just seems suspicious, seeing that we have a fast track for these other geothermal companies that want to come in and drill wherever they want to. So I'd like an answer to that question.
I'm going to ask Bishop Kumar to respond to this. I do know we're doing some work in the Green Lake area. We're building what we call a distribution line. It's not a transmission line. Our transmission is at 69,000 volts. Distribution is in the order of 12,000 volts. I'm not aware of upgrading cables to large sizes. Typically, and I'm not sure, because I have not seen it, I don't know the details, but typically larger cables like that are either use them in underground or they're actually communication cables. So Dave, you got any more information on that?
Well, as far as Dave kind of answered the question about your proposal, trying to improve the reliability out there. And so yes, we did a lot of featuring, especially last year, a lot of featuring trying to clear the lines so that they don't get touched by the trees. And then there's one really bad part right by Green Lake that they relocated around Green Lake. So that may have been the new pole line that went up. A brand new pole line with a new line up top. And that is to avoid going to this really thick forest
Hello. I'm not sure of that. So is there anybody here that knows why they're arbitrarily paving the red road near Green Lake heading down toward Ahalanui? It just seems over the top. They've widened the road. I don't know if anybody's been down there lately. It just feels suspicious, and I don't like feeling suspicious. And Mike, it sounds like that you take a great deal of care with your employees, that they are safe from the toxic fumes. And I would really like it if that your company and your group could spend as much time and energy making sure that the community around this plant is safe. However that happens, whether it's closing it down, getting better, whatever. All right? That's all. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for sticking around. Real quick, I just want to see a show of hands if anybody in the room had adverse effects from around the time of the emissions. I did not, but I know several people. Okay. So, which included a headache and sore throat. So, it seems like that's the effects is all related. I'm wondering, what is the buffer zone that you have, or if you have one, the area that people, is there a buffer zone, and is it different for other places where there are also geothermal plants?
Good question, and thank you for the water. So, you know, the county council was trying to pass a bill last year, which included trying to set up a 1 mile buffer zone. I don't know if you folks recall that. It didn't get passed, but during that process, we searched high and low all the different geothermal projects in the mainland that we're aware of. We also contacted different agencies, including the EPA, and asking if there is an industry buffer zone for geothermal, and the answer was no. Having said that, PGV does comply with what I would refer to as a buffer zone, meaning that we are not allowed to drill a well closer than 600 feet from a boundary. Our lease boundary, the location. But other than that, like I said, there is no known industry standard buffer zone for geothermal. And like I mentioned earlier, and if you have time on the side, you can talk with Cliff about Reno, because all our plants there are right in residential, commercial areas, and he can give you insight on that.
I'm also really concerned about the possibility for groundwater contamination. And as I understand it, there's a chemical that's used in the process of harnessing the energy, isopropane. Is that true? Isopentane? Okay. And if that's being used, how is that being kept from also being, it's a toxic substance, so how is that being prevented from going back into the ground?
So your question is about isopentane. We use normal pentane, which is relatively similar in characteristic. So normal pentane it's a hydrocarbon. It's a byproduct of the refining process. And it is very similar to like propane, butane. And we use it because of its properties to transfer heat. So heat from the geothermal fluid is transferred to this working fluid, normal pentane, and this working fluid then helps generate electricity. So now you asked about how do we protect the groundwater. At our meeting on Thursday, I will hopefully be able to provide diagrams specifically how we protect the groundwater. But the pentane, we test, we monitor usage, and one thing that our operations and maintenance folks would definitely notice is if a generating unit was not performing like it is designed to. It's one of the things that we look at to make sure that we're not losing the normal pentane. But if you get more technical,
the way the system is designed, physically, pentane cannot get into the groundwater system.
Is it gas?
No, because of the pressures that it operates at. It's always lower than the geothermal fluids.
So how does it get recaptured back?
It is similar to like a refrigeration cycle. So it is in a closed loop. We transfer heat to the working fluid, it vaporizes and it can do work. It turns the turbine, then we cool it back to a liquid and it goes into a storage vessel. So it does that continuously. It goes to liquid, back to vapor, does work, back to liquid.
So in theory, you would never be any more, we should always.
If you have a perfect system, that's a good theory, but you know, we do maintenance, we take apart the system, so.
Is there the patents for this technology available that we can look at if we wanted to check out how it exactly works?
I'm not familiar with patents. I would think that if one had a patent, that they probably would not share it unless you I'm not familiar with patents.
It's just like the plans, and somebody came up with the idea and they patented it. Should be made public, I think, I understand.
Okay. I was just informed that patents are public knowledge. I wouldn't know how to access that info, but
maybe through formats.
I can ask.
And then one more thing about the reporting an incident for, like, if you have adverse effects, is it too late for those people that maybe didn't submit a report of feeling sick or whatever to do that today? Or is there a time limit?
I am probably not the person you want to ask, but I'm sure it's okay to submit.
Actually, I can answer that question. You can fill out a form back here, and we'll turn it to you.
Okay, great. And then I just wanted to say something on behalf of my coworker that had to leave early. She lives in the 3-mile radius, and she was just wondering if there's any possibility that PGV could provide, or civil defense, if you provided for the people in the surrounding areas to have access to masks and protective devices like oxygen or masks. So that was her concern.
I think right now we're trying to find ways to keep you better informed, and I know the monitoring is a big one, so that we should have early notification and make decisions early. So we've had those discussions and trying to move forward with some of that. As far as in-place respiratory protection, again, we probably turn to the Department of Health for some guidance with that.
I have an answer for that. At Home Depot, you can buy a mask that will allow you to breathe in high sulfide environment. You can put the mask on at least right away. So that's a possibility until the Department of Health actually shows up and does something else.
Yeah, I was going to just mention, I think it was brought up about H2S levels. If you go to our website, we do have the data for monitoring stations that you can get access. As long as you need internet access though.
Very quick technical question. What height do you sample for hazmat team sample?
Hazmat teams are monitoring the waste level, portable monitors. Correct.
And is that a standard procedure?
Correct, it is.
Thank you.
Hi, I didn't realize that HELCO people would be here tonight. Thank you for coming. And you, Mike, and Gerald both too. And I'm sorry, did you say you were the president? Okay, I had some questions. I tried to follow your answer, but it was a little lengthy, and somehow I didn't get it. But what I wanted to know was, did HELCO do something that they knew might possibly knock them offline? And if so, did they receive any type of notice?
In this particular case, we're doing substation maintenance. Our full expectation was that a problem on one line would not affect the other. After the incident, we went back with the detailed computer settings. We found one really slight nuance. That was the trigger. so we went back and corrected it. If it was known that it operated that way, we would have probably worked with Mike. Part of our procedure is we're gonna take a line out and look at the weather conditions, make sure the risks are low. We do things to mitigate the risk. I think the event was not a good thing. Certainly, possibility of things going wrong is ever present. We do what you're talking about, continuous improvement, continuous learning, and that's the point I wanted to make. Not a good thing that the event happened, but it sure raised awareness for us at HELCO of what we do impacts way beyond just transmission lines. And I think, I insisted that one of my staff get here, and I want my, Mr. Okamura to go and talk to his peers and say, you have to pay attention to the community, because it's not just picking up the line. I must say that I talked about tree trimming. In certain instances, we're going to have to take the line out of service. We're going to take the line out of service for the safety of our personnel. It does increase the risk, because if you have that odd chance of other adjacent line going out, that's the kind of thing, the discussions that I was talking with Okamura is that we have to really look at what occurred here, how it impacts PGV, and we may have to have more discussions with PGV as to say, well, we have a higher risk situation, we've got to do mitigation measures, working with PGV. And one more thing, I think we did, I wasn't present at the debriefing with facility things, but some of the things we're talking about, I think we have to take another step. If we're going to do something that increases the risk, and notification is very important for the community, and we need to work with the civil defense. They need to understand the risks that might be raised if we're going to do some kind of maintenance work on our transmission that might impact the ability for them to notify you. Just raise their awareness and preparedness. We're going to have to work with Mr. Oliver.
A couple of points I'd like to make, because once I heard one of their representatives say something about HELCO choosing where to pull power from. And since you pay them the same amount as you pay for oil, it seems like either the decision is arbitrary or something that influences you to decide where you pull the power from. And personally, I would like as little power pulled from there as possible. But here's what I'm wondering. Because I think HELCO has some obligation to meet quotas of alternative energy by certain years. Is that correct? And I'll get it back, but I'll let you talk more, but it's yes, right? And I want to say one thing that I know must be the stumbling block for solar, is that the most efficient way to use it is to put it on the homes, which essentially would put you guys out of business as a utility because you want to charge on a monthly basis. But since so many people can't afford it, have you considered, instead of investing in big plants, investing in those solar units that generate power, not just heat water, but generate...
You know what, I'm going to stop you there, because this is not political stuff. We asking political, we got 3 more there, 2 more there, and I'm going home, okay? This is all volunteer. These guys have the kind. So that's a technical question. I'm not going to answer for you. It's your political. This is more specific about the safety of our community.
Well, brother, I live right next door. I'm talking safety.
I know. You asked your questions already. Already. You asked a technical question. Is this the best thing, having owned and everything? So, yeah, okay.
Thank you for picking up. Briefly, I think the concern is to reduce accepting energy from PGV to produce some of this. We do have contractual obligations with PGV. We have to meet those contractual obligations. In general, our policy, our practice, and in part required by federal law, is we need to accept as much renewable energy as possible. PGV is categorized as a renewable resource. So we are going to have internal policies and practices and procedures to try and maximize the acceptance of energy. We do have what we call renewable portfolio standards, where we have to accept or meet certain standards set by the state. We're currently more than 40%. 40% is the standard for year 2030. We're well beyond what's required for the state. So in terms of incentive for HELCO to accept more renewable energy to avoid penalties from the state, that is not even being put.
I live in Florida. I live in Florida, 10 miles down the hill from the plant, and I've been in this building since under the law. I've had a lot of situations in my life. I've had a lot of different effects. I felt that thing on Tuesday, the day before, was a rollout. I know that I had surgery the day before, and I don't call in anybody because people tell me, oh, it's a zero reading, it's zero, you know? And I've been here like 30 years doing this. And I found out now there's the sheriff that's keeping you safe in case the geothermal plant incidents. And I noticed that you don't even mention that you put out the carbon over your mouth with the soda, baking soda, that you can get away with that. It's not even in the brochure. Like, this is how emergency kit and make a plan and all this. Why should we have to do this, folks? Why should we have to live like this? This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. Why should we be asking for therapy? Ask that. Please, 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 I beg you, I beg you. And I forgive you. I forgive you, and I know God will forgive you.
Hi, thanks for hanging there. I'm trying to get a better sense of our long-term vision here, where we're going in the future. I'm hearing that there are more geothermal companies looking to development here, and I've heard there are reported footings for exploratory drilling. You know, it's one thing to compare plant here to plant in Reno, but Reno has much more stable geology. This is outside of active volcanoes, so we need to be careful about how we expand this industry. So my question is really for both PGV and HELCO as far as looking forward. If this recent event is caused by if this event is caused by big line maintenance and triggered the release, if we have 20 other plants on the same lines, we expect we've had 50 events in the last 20 years. Can we expect bigger, episodes like this that are virtually catastrophic? Because if civil defense is getting readings of 3,000 parts per billion in certain areas, magnify that by 20, or we in serious trouble here. So what my answer to that as far as HELCO, you need to build in more redundancy in your system, so you're doing line maintenance. There's 2 other lines inside, and does that factor into the cost of geothermal when you're preparing it? So that's my question.
The question is, if we expand geothermal, we anticipate that we're going to have to add more transmission. To address these kind of situations, you have a loss of life, you may run into a situation. Senator Ruderman mentioned that he preferred it near the west side. Just from a transmission standpoint alone, we also believe that if we get west side geothermal, we would have less burden on the transmission system. Less expense, but also more balance between the transfer of power and the consumers.
I'm next. Sarah. Okay, this is for the civil pension. Over here. I'm first. What? Closer to there. Sorry. I'm taking serious issue with this pamphlet. Did this come out under your watch?
So it came out prior, but I'm still responsible for it, so I'm taking the comments and feedback and appreciate the suggestions.
We can open the pamphlet. It's a tribal vote. You can get this from civil defense, and get it from the sub office, the county office here in Memorial Marketplace. All right, this is the last paragraph on the first page. Hydrogen sulfide is a colorless gas with a distinct odor of rotten eggs. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with H2S, but the statement is correct. H2S, this is the bad part. H2S is released from active volcanic vents and can be part of ambient air conditions downwind of eruptive activity. It originates deep underground with groundwater interacts with geothermal heat. H2S can be released during the geothermal energy generation process if there is a leak, etc. Now, the bad part of this is the fact that sulfur dioxide, SO2, is the predominant sulfide released from volcanic vents. And this statement, H2S is released from active volcanic vents and can be part of ambient air conditions. The amount of H2S that is released is minuscule to none daily. 1,005 to 1,500 tons of sulfur dioxide is released. This is an attempt, in our eyes, to blunt the origination of the H2S during geothermal PGV ORMAT's problems. And we want this corrected.
No, and I think another gentleman made the same comment and suggested I go and look into that.
Yes, this is the caveat to Tom's statement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There's another problem here. I don't remember what the heck this is. Oh yeah, in Reno, Nevada, and I had to correct Mike at the county council meeting, and I'm going to correct him here. In Reno, Nevada, there is no magma. In Reno, Nevada, where the geothermal process is in the middle of town, they're using the tectonic plates pushing against each other to form the heat to turn the turbines. This is a different ballgame. We cannot, Mike, ever compare Reno to here and get away with it. Not again. Here, we have the world's most active volcano. Please, Mike, don't bring up Reno as a factor to tell us how safe we are here. That is baloney. And excuse me, but that's maddening. That's maddening for you to say that to us and treat us like idiots. Now, the problem here is that in California, they never allow geothermal around residents. So whether or not there is technically a buffer zone or not, geothermal has no right to be where it is among the residents. You don't move the residents, you move geothermal. The third point I'm making, and I only get 3 wishes, so the fairies say. The third point I'm making is the 3-mile, what do you call it, emergency response notification. I believe that is not sufficient, sir, and I'll tell you why. Because during the 1991 blowout, I was in Puna Pono Alliance, and we were sickened to the point where I was exhibiting, and my neighbors were exhibiting classic H2S poisoning. And I called the police station at 8 something in the morning and asked them, what is that roar I'm hearing the Kelly go off up on the ridge? Puna Pono Alliance is down by Vienna. Because of the trade winds, when the blowout occurred at Vienna around 11 something the night before, by 8 o'clock the next morning, we were gassed. And the police department told me they had a small problem with PGV and hung up in my ear. Now please, sir, do a better job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Finally, Sarah. Yay!
Sorry I'm late, and I may be repeating questions from earlier. The first one is about the caustic soda that's used to scrub the hydrogen sulfide out. And the day after the blowout, I was working in Provo when it was a blowout or in England, so I didn't experience it that day. The next morning, I was driving by on my scooter at 8:50 in the morning, and I came to that large curve right at the geothermal plant there on Cody Road, and I just got, it was reminiscent of the old days, 89, 90, 91, eyes burning and choking, and what kind of health effects do you get from caustic soda?
So caustic soda is high in pH, and if you get the chemical on you, it can cause burns. but it have to be in sufficient concentrations. So it could cause burns. We have a safety data sheet and there's protective precautions that our employees need to abide by.
So, but if I'm like gagging and burning as I'm driving by, is that?
Part of going out onto the perimeter to do monitoring is to see if there is any carryover of caustic soda. In this event, and you said blowout, so were you talking about 1991?
Well, 91, but I've lived there since 89.
Okay. In 1991, there was no caustic soda used. It was unabated.
Right.
Okay.
During those years, you guys danced a lot. I mean, during drilling.
Drilling, we use caustic soda.
I mean, I remember.
Yeah. If you get it on you, it will tingle, and in high concentrations, it could burn you.
Right. Yeah, well, I was definitely. So that brings me to the next question about, well, the meters, like the day of the of this last little incident on March 13th, my partner Robert Trici was there. He was standing in the stinky, stink zone. So there obviously was something there, but the person from the plant or whoever came out and they had their meter and they said they were reading nothing. And so how can we trust the meters when we can smell things, but the meters are saying nothing?
So my response to that is that at that particular moment, at that particular location, the meter did not pick up any readings. Now, ensuing sampling in the area and whatnot, we did pick up levels of 25 and 27 parts per billion throughout the whole area, but there's no real explanation as to that particular moment, that time, it was zero, because the meters will just react to what's there.
Sorry. I mean, if we're smelling it, it's there, and the meter isn't picking it up. I just don't trust the meters. There's not enough meters around the perimeter. They're located in inopportune places. And, we really need to have more meters. And I believe, we could have more meters, but being political, they spent like $6 million out of that fund to do all sorts of things that didn't help mitigate geothermal for the residents. My last question is there's like over 300 chemicals in the process of either what's coming out or what you guys are putting back in, and you're only monitoring for hydrogen sulfide. What about all the other chemicals, radons and bariums and cadmiums and things? I mean, don't you think combined with hydrogen sulfide and we would deserve to not be exposed to all of that?
Okay, so it's true, there are other chemicals that are in the geothermal resource. We do test and sample on an annual basis, but when there is a release, like the one we had on the 13th, the primary chemical or constituent we monitor is H2S, and that is something that was developed by the Department of Health and EPA. And I don't know the details behind why don't we do other monitoring when there's an steam release like that.
Okay, something else we can ask for. I guess I had a few other questions that kind of last, and I know everybody's tired.
I want to talk about that handheld monitoring system. I was there and I got the zero reading. I had you on the phone at the time, and I got pretty upset because I was smelling hydrogen sulfide, zero reading on the monitor. But I think what's even more telling, we did the tour with Peter Adler of the plant, and we had the monitor when we did that tour. And during the tour, we took readings, Ron took readings during the tour, and we could barely smell it here and there a little bit. But we were getting 2 parts per billion on the monitor. Now, here I am at Kaleikini Road, where you say you got 25, near to where Daryl got 3 parts per million. I'm smelling the gas, my nose is burning, I'm looking at the monitor, it says 0. And I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying that there's a problem. I smelled it, and the monitor at 0, there's something wrong with that. I hope you get it fixed.
Yeah, hey, Bob, I'll acknowledge, we're not saying there was no east to west, there was. It's just that for whatever reason, that particular reading, so we gotta see what we can do to improve on that.
And then Kaiser, I was an aviation electrician, I'm a little bit familiar with electrical systems. Now, when for HELCO, when your power dropped off, there's no consideration for, nobody ever thought of the second line drop off. That was a major surprise. But the aircraft is all dual redundant systems. These things have been around for years. Why doesn't someone have an emergency generator at PGV to prevent them from losing their power in an emergency, so they'll be able to pick up something, even a dual redundant system? Because even the A7 had a ran-air turbine. If the power lost, the engine fell, if some failure, the generator failed, pilot could deploy that thing, and you don't even have hydraulics along with electrical.
Well, PGV does have an emergency generator, and our emergency generator kicked on automatically once we were disconnected from HELCO. And that allowed us to facilitate the safe shutdown.
Then why was it necessary to perform a shutdown? It should be able to retain yourself, to prevent the rest of that.
Because you go from 38 megawatts being generated to 0. And, all we had was an emergency generator to give us the energy required so that all of the production wells can be shut in, so that the caustic soda system can work and the steam release, the pressure reduction system can work.
Give me that mic back. All right. I wanna, what? You, of course. Give a big round of applause to Val and hopefully to you. And for Jay Nacho, I didn't know he was in the audience, but for coming out because you explained some of that electric problem. And thank you all people for coming out. Remember, more education. The PGV meeting is on Thursday. Papua Cafeteria, so be there first. Thank you. I'd like to thank Steve Hirakami for being such a great moderator and for donating a lot of chairs and the sound system. And boy, this is getting tough. Oh, and if you guys want to help all the blue chairs against the stage in stacks of, oh boy, we got about 140 chairs to pick back. All the ones with the blue tape, the rest of them goes back in that thing. Thanks for sticking around and helping out. I will help out.
So the pressure is on, the bar is high. I don't know, I had more. Sarah. Yes, ma'am. All that stuff. Look at it. I know, right? I don't care. You can take it out on that one or the line. You might know this one. No, you don't. So yes, I'm available. Just get with me about the thing. Yeah. Okay. But I talked to Ron this afternoon. He's very anxious for me to talk to you, so we'll work it out, whatever. I know! Is that it, really? Are you serious? I'm like, it will be over. This is odd. She went to Lollapalooza. I went to Lollapalooza, which is a 3-day concert thing. And so this part is actually like an ID of the so when we went through the gate, I can't get it off. I have to cut it off. It doesn't take it. That's good for gaming. And I'll tell you what, I watch it. If you ever did the friendship bracelet thing, remember the game? You gotta like soak them up, and watch them. That's funny. That's the only show I knew you went to. It's the only show I've ever been to. It's the first like festival I've ever been to. They didn't do that. It was the one. Bonnaroo, yeah, you have to go back. It was like they really and for like 5 years doing it. So romance. Oh, very cool. That's when it was behind I'm a huge indoor fan, only because of Peter Gabriel. Who would have ever heard of him? Yeah, the whole show. All the musicians that had all world music. Yeah. Awesome, awesome. All right, I gotta pack up my stuffs. Oh goodness, we just recorded that whole thing? Damn it! That always happens to me.